First on the agenda, we have approval of meetings. July 10th, I have, July 25th, I do not have August 9th. Do I have a motion for the July 10th one? To approve or comment? Corrections?
Motion to approve.
Shannon, motion.
I'll second that.
Second. Mike, any discussion? Okay, July 10th, all in favor, aye? Opposed, nay? 1, 2. Is Kyle on yet? If he votes, he needs to be audio. Right now in here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses. Kyle, do you want to yea or nay on the July 10th? Passes 5-0. Okay, we also have 2 for July 25th. One was a 4:30 meeting. And one was the 5:30 meeting on the other lit. Any discussion? If not, take a motion to approve both July 25th.
I'll make that motion.
Is that you, Mike? Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved by Mike, seconded by Shannon. Any discussion? All in favor of passing the minutes from the 2 July 25th meetings, aye?
Aye.
No, nay? Was that you have to speak up if your vote counts, Kyle?
I'll let my vote count. Yay.
Oh, okay. We're up to 6-0. 6-0 passes. Harold's not coming. I do not have August 9th. I think that was just the special meeting that Corey spoke to us. Did everybody get it? I didn't see it. Okay, just carry it on to the next meeting if you would, Debbie. We've not had a chance to look it over. Review of the tax levy and circuit breaker. Okay, this is a 17-page report that the state says the county fiscal body needs to review. And Shannon and I calculated there's 670 cells in the spreadsheet.
Shannon wanted to read every cell, but I move that we have reviewed this document.
It's been moved that we have officially reviewed, as the state requires the fiscal body to do once a year in their first meeting in August. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor that we have officially reviewed the 17-page document with 670 cells, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Kyle? Right now, we're 5-0. Unless Kyle comes on. Okay. It is interesting. The only pages I really looked at closely.
That was a
were-
yay. Sorry.
Thank you. 6-0.
I killed the video just too quickly.
Okay, there probably a time delay of at least a half second. Henry County and Henry Township were the two I looked at. Interesting information. But thank you for making the motion not to read all 670 cells. I think everyone here appreciates that motion. And next we have, and that was relating to our tax levy and circuit breaker that's required. You have before you ordinance 2024-005. This is the one that Addie from Wagner Irwin Shealy alluded to when she spoke to us a couple weeks ago. And the 005 is an ordinance adopting the County of Henry, Indiana, a job classification system. It lists the Indiana code that establishes the county fiscal body shall fix the compensation of officers, deputies, and other employees whose compensation is payable from county general fund, highway fund, health fund, county park, aviation fund, which we no longer are over, in which the county auditor issues warrants for compensation. Includes the powers, you can read these, officers, deputies, other employees, classify positions and services, adopt schedules of compensation, and hire or contract with persons to assist in the development of compensation. That would be Wagner Irwin Shealy. It talks about needing to conduct Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA. Council desires the job descriptions to classify positions and services, develop new compensation schedules, and to verify and document compliance with various government regulations, including FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act, Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA that I mentioned, Americans Disability Acts. And therefore, it's ordained the factor evaluation system, which is what was used by Wagner Irwin Shealy of job classification, is hereby adopted, including the category designation and classification level of each position. Any discussion?
I would just note that we are adopting the classification system and the point system. We are not adopting a wage as a result of this, any wage for any classification based on this ordinance.
Which is what the ordinance says.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Absolutely. And with that, I think this is long overdue. I'm glad we got it done, and I move to adopt this ordinance.
Second,
Moved by Shannon, seconded by Betsy. Any discussion?
just a huge thanks to Shannon, especially for just going above and beyond to make this happen. And like he said, long overdue.
He saw the need. He was on classification years ago for a few months until it became insurmountable, the way we were handling things. So thanks again. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That was an aye, right? Kyle?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I hear no nays, 6-0, it passes. Related to this is ordinance number 2024-006, also relating to job descriptions, also Addie alluded to when she was here a couple of weeks ago. It starts out, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but whereas Henry County intent, again, the Indiana Code 36-2-5-3, Section 3, subsection A, establishes the fiscal body shall fix compensation, same list, number of officers, deputies, and other employees, describe and classify positions and services, adopt schedules of compensation, and hire or contract with persons to assist in the development of compensation. Whereas the Henry County Council wishes to establish accurate job descriptions for county positions. Here, therefore, it be ordained that attached job descriptions shared earlier described and classify positions and services and are adopted as the official job descriptions of all county positions. In the future, as new jobs are added or adopted job descriptions change, new job descriptions shall be prepared or uploaded and presented to the county council for approval. The attached that she shared the day she was here, FLSA exempt, excluded, and non-exempt classifications are hereby adopted for the purpose of calculating overtime for employees holding non-exempt positions. Employees holding exempt or excluded positions are not eligible to and shall not receive FLSA overtime or FLSA compensatory time. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Joel. Joel, we removed chief deputies from that FLSA excluded list. Would it be appropriate to add a line that says we've done that, or what's your recommendation on that? Well, they're exempt either way, but it's the exclusion that I'm concerned with. So this basically says that all the positions and chief deputies were among those are excluded. And I think not that they're going to get paid overtime, but we raised our proposal, and we're yet to pass any salary ordinances, but our proposal is that they will be at a different compensation. So they would not necessarily be excluded, but they would not qualify for overtime based on the rules. So I just want to make sure it's stated properly. It does, okay. So we don't need to change this then at all? Okay. If you're good, then I'm good, and I will move to adopt this ordinance as well.
Moved
I
by
have a, I
Shannon.
have a question.
Oh, go
Wait,
ahead.
wait, hold just a second. We need a second, then we'll have discussion.
I'll second then.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, I have a question too, or a comment. Go ahead, Mike.
The paper we have in front of us, it says ordinance 2025-006, and on our itinerary, it says 2024-006. Across the one we were just talking about.
Yeah, it's just mislabeled. Absolutely good catch.
Thank you. My comment was, the purpose of what Shannon just said was to meet the new Department of Labor 58,000, blah, 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 come January 1st, 2025. And that was our rationale. And I think most counties are probably taking the same rationale. But it's been moved and seconded, discussed, any other discussion, not discussed. Yeah, discussed with two S's, not a T. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Thank you, Kyle. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Thank you. Amended salary ordinance for the sheriff. Hold on a second. Does this qualify as an ordinance, or is that something you have? Okay, that's just a different kind of ordinance than what we normally get from you. Okay. Okay, I just see it once a year, so I usually ask once a year if this is similar to what others. Okay, the Supreme Court of Indiana lists salaries for Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, tax court, judge, magistrate, blah, 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 prosecutor, deputy prosecutors, et cetera. And also goes on, though not in this particular thing from the Supreme Court, pay the sheriff 70% of the prosecutor. The prosecutor is got a 3% increase, which is $183,513, effective July 1st, which just passed. Contract effective July 1st for Sheriff John Sproles, calculated that 70% of the prosecutor is $128,460. Do we have any questions?
I'll move that we accept the amended salary ordinance for the sheriff.
It's been moved by Betsy. We approve this salary ordinance that's before us for the sheriff.
Second.
Then seconded by Susan. Any discussion?
Yeah, we're gonna pay back time back to July 1. Back pay back to July 1.
That's been our precedent. That's our, yes.
It's stated on here, contract effective July 1. I just wanted to mention.
We've done that for every other position that's come
Agreed.
before us in the past 2 years that I'm aware of. I wouldn't know why.
I just wanted to make sure it was included on there.
Yes, and it's on the,
A part of my motion.
okay, retroactive, back pay retroactive to July 1, 2024, to be consistent. Did we vote? No.
Yeah, and I'll
Discussion.
second the amended.
Now discussion. I've lost track. It doesn't take much. I get derail often. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 That was an aye. Okay. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Next, we have, is there anything else on the agenda other than the Dakota clerk? Yeah. Yeah, you're not on the agenda. Dakota is. Next, you're next. I said after we go through it, Dakota come up, then Bobby. Bobby did say she had something that was passed in the commissioners meeting. I know a couple of us listened to it. I knew that was probably coming. But Dakota asked to get on the itinerary, sometimes referred to as an agenda in other bodies.
Yeah,
What you got on your mind, Dakota? You're from Greensboro.
Greensboro Township, correct.
You're on.
All righty. Good afternoon, council men and women. My name is Dakota Clark, and I'm the township trustee who represents Greensboro Township. I would like to begin my remarks by thanking the council for giving us time today to address our concerns regarding the recent passage of the public safety local income tax. I'd also like to thank Commissioner Bobby Plummer for her help in getting us on today's itinerary. I rise today to share the concerns that I share with not only my fellow trustees, but several other elected officials in our constituencies since the passage of this public safety local income tax. Our first concern is the apparent lack of communication between this council, our volunteer fire departments, and the 13 township trustees who represent every corner of Henry County. I can testify today that I did not receive any notification regarding this meeting held on July 25th until just days before. Due to my work schedule and the amount of time I had when I did receive the notice, I was not able to attend that meeting. I had heard the same was true for the majority of trustees and believe that leaving us out of this conversation was inappropriate. I want to clarify that I'm not blaming anybody for how mail moves. My concern is not having us a part of the conversation at all. I understand and respect that this body, alongside the Newcastle City Council, would have the final decision, but I also strongly believe in collaboration and believe that us having a seat at that table would have avoided many of our concerns. Even if we were not offered a seat at the table during the process, us having the relevant information would have given us the opportunity to aid all of our fire departments in complying with the application process, ensuring every department was going to receive the determined distribution of funds. My first question, which was actually raised by Trustee Donna Tauber of Spiceland, what was the application process for these fire departments?
Turn this over to Shannon, who worked closely with our county attorney, as far as communications, following the legal requirements. They dealt extensively with that. I did not personally.
So there was no formal application. There was notification and request and documentation due by, I believe it was July 1st.
Correct.
All of the interaction that we had prior was with the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association. Their representative locally is Jeff Beal. And at a meeting late last year, early this year, the dates escape me, there was discussion and there was many fire chiefs present. I do not know if Greensboro was represented or not, was not my meeting, but we discussed having everything flow through the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association representative, and they would in turn get things to us. And my understanding, and I was copied on at least one email where that was sent to a number of individuals that get it to him, he'll make sure it gets to us. Those that provided the information, the request, and the associated budget in that timely fashion were included on that list. As for notifications with township trustees, this law that was passed by the state legislature doesn't have anything to do with township trustees. Well, that's not how it was explained to us. And it was
So-
explained that this money goes directly to the fire departments. It's the fire department's responsibility to ask for it. And my understanding is these dollars will be awarded directly to the fire departments. And so I understand that many township trustees and individuals of leadership are also members of, or even leadership of, the volunteer fire departments. I understand that. We acted in our best faith to work through the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association. They kept telling us that they are working with all of them and some are not responding. And I did end up with some applications, if you will, emails and documentation sent to me directly, in which I also conveyed that they should be sent to myself, Rex Peckinpah, Debbie Walker, and Joel Harvey. And we received some sent directly that way. This is the first time doing this for anybody. So we're going to have lessons learned from this. Would we like to develop an application process? Absolutely. I sent a sample of an application process to Joel that we saw another county developing. So hopefully communication will be better in the future, but I can't speak for the ones that didn't go to meetings or didn't answer emails. I did the best we could with the information that we had, and it worked out the way it worked out. So
So,
as for the mail and the certified notifications to all those voting organizations,
mhm.
I'll turn that over to Joel for his response.
Requires that notices of these be deposited 10 days in advance to any taxing district it might have an effect on. The general opinion is that since townships don't receive lit, they don't have to get these notices directly. I sent them to all the townships anyway, sent them to school districts that don't receive lit. I sent them everywhere.
Right.
It just has to be mailed 10 days in advance. Now, if your postman doesn't deliver it till 2 days before the meeting,
Right.
that's it. I could probably get an exact date when they were mailed, but I know it was more than 10 days in advance. I don't think I received any in return.
Right.
And they just have to be sent by regular mail, so.
Right. And I'm not faulting the council or
Sure.
the legal team for how that was delivered. One of our concerns, though, is we do oversee fire funding, and this tax increase does impact our taxing abilities to raise funds for our departments to help close that gap. And I understand that the state statute doesn't require township trustees to have a role in this decision because it is the county council with the assistance of the city council. But moving forward, do you think that we would be offered a seat at the table when we have this discussion next year?
I don't see, more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. We tried to have as many discussions with as many fire departments that were interested as we could.
Mhm.
Without, we did not have all, I think, what was it, 16 volunteer fire departments and all township trustees or board of direct. We did not have a meeting that invited everyone.
Right.
We tried to, I felt like having the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association involved was a good way for me to have interaction as a liaison from this council to the fire departments. And if that's not the best way, then we need to figure out what the best way is. That was our best effort to make it happen for this year.
So before I continue with my concerns, I had another question I was going to ask later, but I'll ask it now. So I've been told by one of my fire chiefs, and I represent 3 volunteer fire departments in my township, that they did not receive adequate information from the representative from the Indiana Volunteers Firefighter Association. Many were believed that this would trigger an automatic disbursement of funds or that there wasn't an application process at all. If the communication was done between the council and that one representative, moving forward, would you be willing to yourselves have that direct communication with our volunteer fire departments so that there isn't any information that is possibly overlooked or left out?
That's a good question. I'm not opposed to having a meeting with anybody that wants to be involved. Can we send, I'll make certain that we get the information to anybody that wants it. But can I seek out individuals? Dakota, you and I've just had an email exchange and a text message exchange. When you walked in, I didn't know who you were. And good, bad, or ugly, there's a lot of folks that I don't know. So I'll take the blame for that. But I am more than willing to have anybody involved that wants to be involved. Like I said, I tried to attend as many meetings as I could. I believe I attended 3 that the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association had conducted. And whether or not your folks were, I know at least some of your fire department folks were at the one meeting that was right over here. And it was discussed then.
Mhm.
So what they actually heard and discussed and what emails between the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association occurred. I had many discussions with Jeff where he said, I've emailed all the fire chiefs. In my mind, that was taken care of,
Okay.
right? If those fire chiefs didn't get those, or if he had a wrong email address or whatever that is, so the question then is it the council's job, I guess, to have interactions with each of the 16 and understand and know who's in charge at each of the 16? I'd much rather have one person to filter that through. But I mean, I I put a lot of work and effort into it and I work a day job.
Yeah, and I understand.
And I would rather not have to be the one filtering information to 16 or 32 or 48 people or whatever. If that's what we need to do to make it happen, that's what we'll do. We need to get this smoothed out, an application in process, and we can make certain that we start this process sooner. And I tried to work through that organization to, does everybody know, with the deadline's coming, we've got to get them to do this if this is going to happen. And what I heard from them is some are going to send it. I got this one going to have it. This one's going to have it. And others haven't responded at all. And they're either not going to do it or have no idea what they're doing or don't know how.
Mhm.
So I am very open to improving the process. If we could have one liaison that everybody could filter through, that would be great. And I do not care if that's the Indiana Volunteer Fighters Association or if that's Dakota Clark and he takes care of addressing it with everybody else. But I'm concerned about adding workload to my job shouldn't say that. I'm not really concerned about adding workload. If it needs done, I'll get it done. But you see my concern.
If I may respond to that before I
Please.
continue. I understand, I agree with you 100%. It's challenging to have a government position and also have a full-time job. I work in agriculture, so I'm not home most days. But I think my suggestion would be to include the township trustees in the next go-around, because then we would be responsible to pass that information along to all of our fire departments. Like I said, I represent 3. I know several represent 2, some represent 1. And so if the council members can't, for whatever reason, meet with their fire chiefs that they represent at the council level, I think the township trustees would be perfect for that position. I would be more than happy to relay that information to my fire chiefs. I will continue now. I can tell you today that I've spoken with one of my 3 fire chiefs who informed me that he was not made aware of the process in its entirety until a director of a county department asked if he had applied for this funding. It was only then that this chief reached out to his county council member and was able to submit all the required documentations to qualify. These concerns have been shared by several other fire chiefs throughout the county who feel that communication was not adequate, and we've already discussed that, and either did not receive all the details regarding the application process or were under the impression that the passage of this measure would trigger an automatic disbursement. This sentiment is also shared by township officials who only learned after the July 25th meeting that their departments would not receive any funds. And I think that there was a failure of communication. And again, I'm not blaming the council. I just think having one person sending emails, things can fall through the cracks. But because of this, Middletown Fire missed the opportunity to receive $79,106.95 of funding. Dunreath missed out on $16,753.65. Louisville missed out on $37,500.43. Liberty missed out on $26,363.13. New Lisbon missed out on $9,420.63. Shirley, which is one of my departments, missed out on $3,223.35. And Mount Summit missed out on $65,080.16. This body, alongside the Newcastle City Council, passed this tax that will impact every resident of Henry County. Does the council believe that it is appropriate for taxpayers to owe more money when their departments will not receive any funds from this increase when there was an apparent lack of communication? Or, go ahead, sorry.
The reason we've all been letting Shannon talk is because he did all of the work for this. And I believe very strongly that if he hadn't, no one would have gotten $1, not just this year, but next year and the year after, because that was just not the inclination of the council. So I give Shannon credit that anyone's gotten anything. And the only good thing is that I know not a single fire department will miss that money next year because, Shannon's already acknowledged that possibly communication could have been done differently, but I just wanted to, publicly thank him. It is completely on him that these fire departments have received anything, and next year, I'm glad that everyone will be able to apply. And I'm sure the council will be happy to work through the process, but I appreciate you coming to talk to us. I just wanted to explain to you why the rest of us are not saying anything.
No, I
We
understand.
didn't do it, and he did. I mean, the amount of work he put into it is, if you'd seen the amount of time he spent on the numbers, the spreadsheets, and all the communication. So I really appreciate that. I think it's a huge service to our county. And I hope next year that everyone gets those funds. So thanks
Yeah.
for coming to talk to us.
Absolutely. And I also want to thank the councilman for all the work that he's poured into this. These departments have been asking for help for many years. And so I appreciate his efforts to get us anything for our departments, and same for the members who supported that measure. I just want to close that. If this was done properly, I don't think any department would have purposely passed on any available funds to them. So clearly there was missteps, and I understand that this was the first time it's ever happened in the state. I just hope moving forward, there can be a stronger relationship between the council and the township trustees who do oversee fire protection for our county. I would like to close my remarks by again thanking the council for allowing time today to address our concerns, and hope that moving forward, this council can have a respectful and proactive relationship with us to ensure that all of our constituencies' needs are met. I'd also like to encourage our neighbors to become more involved in local politics, as decisions made by all of us here in this chamber impact them, regardless if their communities and services benefit from these actions or not. Thank you.
Dakota, I just want to say that I think we all understand your frustration. It's unfortunate that not every single volunteer fire department applied. I truly believe due diligence was done on the council's end, and specifically Shannon's. Obviously, information didn't get to the right people, or I don't even know what went wrong, but I hear your concerns. I understand why you would raise concerns about the process, and I would hope next year I won't be on the council, but there's good communication, and we have everybody applying at those funds, and we can support our volunteer firefighters.
I think one of the things that occurred previously to last year, we had until October 1st to consider and pass LITs. Then there were some changes to what was House Bill 1454 a year ago. There were modifications to that, which had implications, I think in particular, separate out the Newcastle situation, is why we had that vote separately. So by the time the new laws came down from this last legislative session that affected this, I think the dust settled and we had information in May, and then it was brought to our attention that the new deadline for passing LITs moved from October to August 1st. So Shannon, in defense of him, worked overtime and diligently to put all this together, spreadsheet after spreadsheet, working with Joel and the association. I have nothing but commendations and thank yous for Shannon. I can't believe working full-time, he provided the information that he did. And I know legally Joe met that obligation as well, not making excuses.
Sorry.
There was 1 month to put all this together, and there was an assumption that the association person communicating with Shannon was communicating with everyone. At no point did the topic of township come in, either legally or with the fire. But do note that everything that you said is our first time around. We're probably one of the first ones in the state of Indiana to pass what we passed. So it's a learning experience, Dakota.
No, absolutely. And I want to clarify that I'm not, I just wanted to share these concerns moving forward, because again, I understand it was the first time in the state, and I just wanted to share my concerns. And again, I would like to thank you for your efforts on the council to do this, and thank you to the members who supported. I did have one other concern that I wanted to ask about, and that is the oversight of these funds. Is there going to be a procedure where these departments who receive these funds going to have to supply this council with an annual report of how that money was spent and made available to the public?
Whatever the law requires. Our auditor takes care of most of those
Yeah, the
situations.
statute doesn't require that, but I tend to think, and I'd have to look at other provisions in the Indiana Code, but I think by receiving these funds, those departments would then probably be subject to audit by the State Board of Accounts. So there will be some oversight.
Okay.
And there was new legislation passed that requires the local fire departments, the volunteer fire departments, to start submitting contracts and additional information to the State Board of Accounts because of that oversight.
Yeah.
As far as the question that I think I heard you ask in there, and you're basically asked, are we in favor of all the taxpayers paying into this tax and their fire department not receiving anything? I don't like it any more than anybody, any individual taxpayer. I live in Middletown. My fire department didn't apply and didn't get a nickel. I'm hoping they do next year. The funds, I think, and I don't know if you asked it or if it's what I'm remembering from the text, how it will be distributed and what happens to the remainder of the dollars that those 6 or 7 departments didn't get. The 9 departments that applied and the amounts that they will get will be based on a calculation. The calculation that I gave was based on 2024 actuals. That same calculation will be applied to 2025 actuals, and that's the dollar amount that those 9 will get.
Mhm.
Those come right off the top of public safety lit funds. After that, all of the individual taxing authorities, including the county and the townships and the city, receive a portion of those public safety lit funds based on population. That will, so any additional dollars that were not applied for and gotten through the others will be distributed to all the taxing authorities, including the townships. So if that has some, the towns do, that's right, I'm sorry, the towns do, not the townships, that's my mistake. So the towns will receive those, thank you, Joel. And then they have to contract with these volunteer fire departments for service, so opportunity for that discussion to happen, I guess, but I will tell you that I had discussions with the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association, and I had discussions with a couple of fire chiefs. And what I had told them was, you guys need to get your collective act together and have, and if that's not what the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association is for, somebody needs to get together. One of the chiefs told me it'll never happen. Never happen. Well, it needs to happen. So what's it gonna take? We'll do the best we can. Look forward to working with you guys next year to make it work better.
Absolutely, and I agree, and I think that's just why it's so important. You know, again, I know we don't have any responsibility in it, but if we could act as our liaisons between you guys and our fire departments to ensure that everyone will receive funds for a tax that everyone's going to end up having to pay, that would be the perfect world. So I appreciate it, and thank you again.
Thank you, Dakota. Anyone else on this topic before or after Bobby comes up? Hold on, Terry. Okay, whoever, Donna had her hand up too, but go ahead, Terry.
There we go. So we had great dialogue tonight. First of all, my name's Terry Matney. I'm the Prairie Township trustee, and we had great dialogue, and that's what should happen. We figure out why things didn't work. We understand where we're all at, and I can appreciate where you're at. I really can. I appreciate the words that Dakota had to speak to everybody. Had a little side conference with Joel the other day. He enlightened me a lot as well. I just want to bring up, since we're kind of doing a little edification here, and my source of frustration was this, and I don't mean to be trite or flip when I say this, but what's a fire department? When you say that only fire departments can get the money, what's a fire department? Would anybody, I guess it's rhetorical, I won't have anybody answer, but in my case, I'll use Prairie Township as an example. My firefighters, we feel like we have a good situation. They don't have to worry about a roof leaking, a foundation sagging. They don't have to worry about the transmission going out of their truck or the pump going bad. They don't pay anything. They do what they love to do, what they're great at, fighting fires and serving the community. I own the building, the fire trucks, and I say I as the trustee, the trucks, the building, the equipment, every nut, bolt, and washer. So in effect, Prairie Township was the fire department. Legally, that name is the fire department.
Completely agree.
And I wasn't informed. And-
Completely agree. And you and I've talked.
Yeah, we did.
a
I
little
appreciated
bit.
that.
Yeah. And you're in a unique situation. I think you're the only one in the county that the township actually owns the fire department. Does Liberty as well? Okay. It was a situation that, yeah. Good point, I guess. And, you know, I thought we were doing the right thing by having all fire chiefs involved and being on that list. And if it didn't work out the best, then we'll give it a better shot next year.
And I appreciate that. And like Susan said, you know, you've made the effort and you know how it is. No good deed goes unpunished. So, a little
Sure.
bit of that, but I just wanted to share that with you that, you know, we're not all constructed the same. It may affect on who you communicate, how you communicate. And I know it hurt us. So that's all I want. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Donna?
I'll be real brief. Donna Tauber, Spiceland Township. I received a phone call from one of my Dunreath fire chief. I don't think he's here. He was going to try to make it. His email was dated from Mr. Bill on June 28th about this application process. He called me and asked me what application, what process, who I turn it to, what do they need? He didn't know. So I told him to use a contract that I have with the department and the township, and I think he turned it into you. He did it in a timely manner, as quick as he could to, you know, and it was still considered a day late. My concern also is most of these fire departments, they don't have a budget, they don't pay their bills, they don't handle their money. That is done through the townships and the towns that they serve through that contract. So to me, the accountability, because I know as a township trustee, I have to account for every receipt, for every time they fill up their gas tank, every bill, every time they spend. I don't see the accountability in this. And I'm in a position with two fire departments where one's going to receive money, which I'm very thankful and grateful that you did pass that. But the other one's not going to receive a dime for 2025, even though they make equal amount of fire runs. So that was my concern.
Thank you, Donna. We're taking notes and being educated how we can improve things next year.
So I'm just going to dovetail a little bit on this because I've been greatly involved in talking to several people. I will let everybody know that I am working with Representative Criswell. He's been made aware of some of these issues, and he's going to be working next year to change the legislation, make it a little bit easier, that there doesn't have to be an application process, potentially. Got to think of the different things that they have to do. Not an the way the funds are calculated. And nothing against any town or any township in Henry County. But when you say Middletown gets $60,000, New Lisbon gets $7,000, or Strong gets $7,000. All the fire departments have the same amount of equipment they're required to have, the same cost. None of the costs are cheaper for the smaller fire departments as they are for the larger fire departments where equipment goes. Fuel's the same. One of my firemen said, the fire doesn't burn cooler and strong because we have a less assessed value. So Representative Criswell has been made aware of all of these things, and he is going to be working to see what we can change to make it a little bit more equitable for all of the fire departments. He agrees that maybe shouldn't be an application process. There shouldn't be a deadline. Maybe it should be calculated differently. I don't know what that process is going to look like, but he has agreed to take a deeper dive into HB 1454.
Bobby, thank you for that information. That's
You're
really good to hear. And your point about it being not quite equitable is spot on. And I don't know what the answer is, but
Yeah, I mean, everybody has to start somewhere in order to get this law going. They had to have a starting point.
Yeah.
And make changes, and there's always going to be changes that need to be made and mistakes happen, or somebody didn't see it this way. I get it, and everybody understands it. And I think all of the fire departments are grateful that the money is going to be available. I know Strawn and all the others that I've talked to are grateful that they got $1. So.
As you relay information to Corey, I thought it was unusual that they had to opt in. To me, it just.
Yeah,
should
well,
just
and
be
that's the other
automatic.
thing is you have to opt in. I mean, if we're doing a 0.05 tax specifically for fire departments or townships, and I agree, many of the fire departments are owned by, it's the township, not necessarily There are a couple that are just a fire department, but the fact that they have to opt in versus, hey, this money has been made available.
Right,
It's available to everybody. That, he has been made aware of that as well.
okay.
Yeah,
That,
I
that to me
appreciate
makes
you
a lot of
bringing that up
sense.
because I had forgotten that point.
Yeah, and that
but-
eliminates all the rigmarole and communication. It's
Yeah.
just, you
Yeah.
pass the tax, everybody
Yeah,
gets.
and,
their
and I
cut.
get it. Everybody has to start somewhere and then
Yeah.
they make changes and move forward, but.
I was going to say thank you for reaching out. Before you came up, I was going to say I would also suggest you contact your legislature
Mhm.
because the way it's written now, the money's divvied up by non-farm assessed evaluation per township or per area,
Mhm.
fire district. And we said the fire,
And
they all
I-
have the same equipment, they all have the same volunteers, they all have the same temperature that fires burn. It's divvied up by law, by the
Oh,
assessed
absolutely.
valuation.
And everybody understands that. They all understand it. They may not be pleased with it, but they're not understand it. And I will publicly thank Representative Chriswell for taking the time after that public meeting, July 25th. He probably stayed around here for a good hour, talking to different fire departments and learning their needs and learning about them. And I know he doesn't need educated on fire because he grew up in Middletown, but he took the time to talk to a lot of people and listen to their concerns. So I want to publicly thank him for doing that. And then I'll switch gears.
I'll respond just real quickly that I'll reach out to Corey and see if I can get him in touch with the representative that helped write that law, and I can't remember his name. He's in touch. Because as I recall, where you want him to go is, or where they discussed going is where that law started. It started with an automatic distribution, and then it went haywire at the state legislature and it got sliced and diced into.
We all know how the
what you
state
saw.
legislator works.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense sometimes. So today at the commissioners meeting, Angela Cox had presented this to us. And I will go ahead and read it. It says, Dear Henry County Commissioners, a collaborative effort is underway to create a crisis intervention team for the citizens of Henry County. This effort is modeled after a framework from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Crisis intervention team is a pre-arrest jail diversion that promotes and supports collaborative efforts to create and sustain more effective interactions among law enforcement, mental health care providers, individuals with mental illnesses, their families, communities, and to reduce the stigma of mental illness. NAMI Indiana provides a framework to interested communities that bring CIT into more and more areas around the state. One of our initial steps is to establish and train 4 CIT coordinators. Overall program coordinator, law enforcement coordinator, advocacy coordinator, and mental health professions coordinator. The individual course fee is $450. The mental health professions coordinator is able to cover the training costs through their employer. This leaves us with a total request of $1,350 for the remaining 3 coordinators. We understand that there is a process for this funding request and that a decision could be up to 30 or more days away. To expedite the training, would it be acceptable for the health department to pay for the training upfront and upon approval of this request, have the funds deposited into the health department account as reimbursement? Thank you for your consideration. And this is an opioid request. So today at the commissioners meeting, Joel said we could go ahead and pass this and then get the resolution done at a later date, contingent upon you guys passing this tonight. And I just didn't get it to Debbie to get it on the itinerary.
I think a couple of us listened in and heard this, and I think Joe Wiley read it from this same information. I think Kyle sits on CIT as far as our rep, if I'm not mistaken. CIT.
The
is that
JRAC
one-
sourcing,
Pardon?
the JRAC committee.
Oh, you're not on the
That's where we've
CIT.
discussed.
Yeah.
No, not specifically, but that's where we originally started discussing it. It was through JRAC.
Okay, very good. Questions, comments? They passed this to lead to an ordinance, which we'll take up at our September
So
meeting,
they will go ahead and pay it. And then once we get the
reimbursed.
opioid resolution done at the commissioner level and the council level, then they will be reimbursed.
So
Questions?
do we need any action tonight or no? Can't take
You
action.
just need, because we have to do it with the opioid resolution, and you guys have to approve the opioid resolution as well. You guys need to approve this as well.
Okay. I'll
so
move to
that we can
approve.
reimburse.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Shannon, seconded by Susan, third by Betsy. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Thank you,
Thank you.
Bobby.
And Ken and I had something I wanted to go over tonight also.
Okay. You're on. Go ahead.
Two things real quick. One on the fire department topic. I would be glad to help on communication as well next year. We have like active
All in favor, say
911.
aye.
We send out notices to the fire departments all the time through active 911. Couple of clicks, we can send a message out to every member of every fire department. So as it gets closer to that time, if you guys would like us to
Appreciate that.
send out some reminders, I typically go to all the fire chiefs and the fire association meetings as well, most months. So if someone lets me know, I don't mind to put a couple reminders out to
Thank you,
those
Brian,
guys.
for offering. I think
as
it
it gets
passed 6-0.
closer.
We're in favor of you doing so, and thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just let me know when it gets closer and they need to do something and I'll remind them. The other topic is, so the newly proposed deputy director position, I made a realization, and I heard you guys having some discussions with chief deputies and other departments. I guess, proposed salary at the 97% is $58,047. And that job description was recommended to be an exempt position. So it falls $609 short of the 58,656. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. I don't necessarily care either way, but I feel like it for 656 or $609, it may be worth it to avoid overtime. I just wanted to bring that to your guys' attentions before you do anything.
You were working with Stephanie, Shannon. You have a note on that, Debbie? With Stephanie? Duly noted. We will look into that.
All right.
227 employees, we knew there would be some outliers and some things that needed to probably be fixed, but I think the vast majority are 97% are the new Department of Labor ruling.
I'm gonna mention one more since we're on that topic, and that is our clerk's office has traditionally always had 2 chief deputies and 1 in each department, 1 for the courts and 1 for voter registration. Earlier this year, we made some changes because of the election year so that her excluded chief deputy would be permitted to make overtime. And that position has been evaluated by Wagner Irwin Shealy, and because of the way we had things compressed before, basically my expectation or my hope is that we can make both chief deputies the same wage as they are today. And then she would be excluded from overtime. It is, right now it's listed as election supervisor. It's a Pat A with a, I knew you were gonna ask me that.
$47,353.
So 47,353 is what it says right now. Previously was a chief deputy, and the only reason it was veered from chief deputy is because of the overtime situation. And I would like to, in our budget in voter registration, which is 010, she is still listed as chief deputy, but the wage in there is not what we had talked about for chief deputies, so. Well, it's set at 97%, so it's in the budget that was sent to us today. So I just think we missed this one is all. So, and I don't know if it's because of the election supervisor thing and the overtime thing, but I think we established that chief deputies are gonna be exempt from overtime. We established what that wage should be. We haven't voted on it yet. But I want to make sure that it's okay to make that change in the budget. If so, I'd like Debbie to make that change. You guys good? I don't know, do we need a motion or do we have to have consensus or do 656? in voter registration 010. And
You said
I'm-
it's listed in our budget as chief deputy on the line
it's chief deputy on the line, but the salary is not,
because Wagner and Shealy didn't have that information.
kinda, it was evaluated separately. They have it in there, it's listed as a Pat A. Okay. Correct, so we need to make sure chief deputy in voter registration is changed to 58,656. And if everybody's good with that, yeah, I'm good with consensus. I don't know that we need to make a motion unless Joel says we need to make a motion.
Other comments?
Everybody good?
Well, if there were two outliers out of 227 employees, I'm really upset that we missed 0.9%.
My turn?
Next time we can do better.
Okay, is it my turn?
We're seeking for perfection here. It's your turn.
Okay. So many of us received some communication from Chief Deputy Josh Smith, and I also spoke with Captain Matt Pierce today, continuing the conversation of potentially implementing 100% market value for our merit polls, and I wanted to talk through some of that documentation we received. I sent a chart just looking at their turnover the past 3.5 years. In the past 3.5 years, they have turned over 13 merit polls, which represents half of their sheriff's or law enforcement personnel. And I know that 97% will be a huge improvement to making our pay competitive. The issue of cost to train new recruits is what was in the documentation that Josh passed us, which is what I wanted to go over tonight. It shows on the documentation that the cost to train those 13 new replacements was over $300,000. And the cost to train a new hire is running about $33,000 right now. In addition, the time it takes from initially hiring a new recruit until they're fully trained is 8 to 9 months. So that 300,000 plus represented the cost to train those 13 new recruits, in addition to the 8 to 9 months to get them completely trained. And it did not include the cost of the training officer that has to ride with them, which pushes those costs up even higher if you consider their time as well. So this significant investment in new personnel, along with a few other thoughts, makes me want to revisit raising their wages to 100% of market value. And here are the 3 topics I wanted to talk through. The 2025 pay for Newcastle deputies has been proposed at $60,906, which is almost identical to 100% of market average, which is $60,156. And in addition, Newcastle is committing to 12% increase beyond that in 2026 and another 9% in 2027, which does show a trend in law enforcement that will be much higher likely than our other job categories. So I think we want to consider that when we're trying to stay competitive. The second point is that hitting this market average will make it hopefully easier to attract quality recruits and also to potentially entice lateral hires, which circumvents those training costs when we can hire laterally. Over time, hitting this market average will encourage our experienced officers to hopefully stay with the department. And I think that as we're looking for ways to reduce liability exposure for the county, trying to increase our experience in law enforcement overall is a good approach to doing that. So I wanted to summarize that information and open up for any discussion.
Just to piggyback off of those points, which I concur with, there's an enormous amount of, having officers and deputies on the road that have experience for many years is invaluable. You can't put a dollar number on it, but it means something. And I know that formerly working as a dispatcher, I hate to see some of the names on these lists were just fantastic officers, and I hate to see them leave because they can get paid better somewhere else. And think we need to keep working to be competitive so that we keep that experience. And economically, it just makes sense to me. I mean, there's a good fiscal reason to bring it up to 100%.
Before the 13 officers left, we had average experience in years of about 20 years in. And that is possibly halved. It's significant. So when looking for ways, and we sit in budget, how can we mitigate this liability increase? I think it makes sense to, I think the investment in doing this over time is going to decrease training and hopefully over time, it could help with liability exposure as well.
Thank you, Susan. Other thoughts, comments, discussion?
So I would ask for a consensus about raising the 13 merit pool, or the all merit pools, not the 13, but all merit pools to 100% of average market.
I concur.
I'd like to see the 17.5% raise, see what that happens and what occurs on that. If that doesn't help the plight that we've heard about the last 4 years, I don't know what we can do. We're going to go from number 13 out of 14 the counties compares us with to probably number 5 or 6. Yet we're third to the bottom in our assessed valuation. I think we're becoming a tax and spend council. For that reason, you're not going to get my consensus.
If I can ask.
How many officers would this impact currently? I don't have all my paperwork with me.
I couldn't understand you. I'm sorry.
Sorry. How many officers fall into the merit pool classification?
It's 29.
27. The
27.
sheriff doesn't fall into the 26? Okay. Okay, so we don't count Josh, there's a 26. I forgot he's the chief deputy, so he's exempt. Oh, is that better? 26. Okay. He's gone. He just disappeared.
Thank you.
Sorry we didn't get this to you. I thought maybe Susan had forwarded it to you in the email that we'd sent.
I haven't had the luxury to be able to look at anything today. So
I understand.
I appreciate what was sent to us, and I did read over it.
I think the one thing that she missed, and I'll just throw it out there, is when I looked down this list, and I think I told both of them today, what surprised me is that little bit of more money could make us competitive because the amount, and we invest in our laterals is such a great savings. Like 168 hours, 336 hours, 940 hours compared to 1,228 hours. So if we can make this any more attractive, where we can bring somebody that has the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, which was 640 hours, which is only a $550 cost to send them, but then we have 640 hours of wages we pay them while they're in Plainfield, Indiana. So.
Thank you, Matt.
So Mike and Kyle, will you weigh in on the consensus? So we're ending budget.
I want to thank Josh for sending out that report in such a timely manner, but I have one question. With the cost of training an officer being $33,000, and if you have a canine, I'm not really sure what a canine costs to train a canine and the cost of a canine. Does the sheriff's department have anything in place, I guess, in way of a contract that would require an officer to stay after being trained for more than a year or 2 years? I mean, $33,000 is an awful lot of money to invest in somebody just to lose them after 9 months or even a year. That's a lot of money.
We
Dovetail on that.
We concur on that, and I will go into the contract thing quickly. When I hired in 99 at Newcastle Police Department, I signed a contract. The problem is with EMS, and I talked to Brian ahead of time, it's approximately $10,000 that they pay for the schooling for the paramedic. Our, I guess, good and bad is we pay $550 at the Indian Law Enforcement Academy for them to attend. So that being said, our biggest expense is their wage while they're present at that academy. So we can't put them under contract that they would pay us back money they earned through labor while at the academy. We could potentially say, you owe us $550, but that's
kind of a drop in the bucket when we're $30,000 in.
Matt,
Does that make sense?
and then it's my understanding that I had thought this was the case, but I've been corrected, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not losing recent hires. We're losing deputies with
So
a lot of
that-
experience.
That is true until today. We lost Nate Lockwood, who we sent to canine school last year. And under that note, there is a possibility to potentially look at those things where we paid $10,000 to Von Lick Kennels strictly for his training, not his dog, under a contract, maybe for somebody to stay that goes into a specialty down the road. But yeah, I mean, it is true that we have lost officers to better paying jobs that have more time on. But we're also losing one today. It was his last day. He's going to Whitestown. I get Whitestown and Whiteland. And he has 3+ years on, and we sent him to canine school, I think July of last year. Obviously preparing for him to be here for much longer than a year with his dog.
I was gonna just dovetail. I had done a little bit of talking with other people. I didn't know how widespread the requirement was. You do the training, you're required to stay with the Henry County Sheriff's Department for 2 years, 3 years. Is that the case in other sheriff's department? Are you aware, or is that
So-
even something that's possible, or?
So the problem is, what do we tell them they have to pay back? If we hire them in today, say Ken and Gray comes and says, today is the day I want to work for the Henry County Sheriff's Department. I just can't take it anymore. I want to be part of the team. So you would have to put you through pre-basic, which is 40 hours, just to get you started. It's in high liability, criminal law, traffic law. At some point, we're going to put you with a seasoned officer, an FTO, and we're going to spend a minimum of 588 hours riding around with a seasoned officer, going on your first calls, getting your understanding of, how the radio works, geography, just your basics, just you're starting to walk. And at some point in that year, you're going to have to go to the law enforcement academy, which is another 640 hours that you spend in Plainfield. All that has a cost in your salary, but pre-basic is like $100. The academy is like $550. If they return the equipment, like their uniforms and things like that, I don't know, that's the problem, is why there's no widespread contracts in law enforcement, because we can't ask them to pay back salary. Am I wrong, Joel? We can't tell somebody to pay back a wage they earn.
I've done those types of contracts, you got fire department, for EMS, or the street department, the CDL thing, but I've never done one for police department.
Because we're lucky in the fact that the academy picks up all but $550 of that 6-month training, but we're still paying their salary and without them as police officers in this county.
So I want to dovetail on it, and I by no means want to take credit for your thoughts even. And I had a discussion with both Captain Pierce and Chief Deputy Smith earlier. And one of the things we discussed was a sign-on bonus.
Correct.
Hiring bonus, make it an attraction retool, which is something that we're looking for to be able to recruit. That is something that they could be asked to pay back.
Yeah, there are agencies now that will do a sign-on bonus and say over 2 years, and then you prorate it as the 2 years goes. So if at some point they left during whatever your set time period was, you prorate back what they didn't fulfill their obligation, and then return that, potentially, I'm sure.
So I would be much more in favor of some sort of sign-on bonus as an attraction, and being able to compensate even folks from other departments that want to come on, give them a sign-on bonus and pay them for their years of service. I mean, we've lost a lot of experience, and if it can be attractive to bring them here, that would be great. I'd be in favor of that. And the other thing that we talked about was some sort of stipend for living inside the county, because as we discussed, I think half of your recruits over the last couple of years live outside the county, and we'd like them to be here. So if that is something that we could look at, I would be in favor of that, in lieu of 100% of midpoint.
And I agree. I think the 100% of midpoint was a place to get us competitive with the local agency that we're going to compete with people come January 1 from, which is Newcastle Police Department. I mean, that's our local sister agency. And I do think that if it's the possibility, or if it's the, desire of the council to help us get that to 100% to help push forward building a better department, that would be great. And then next year, sitting down and going over sign-on bonuses, residency bonuses. I'm sure Joel's gonna have to look into the fact that we've never done a residency bonus and how can we hold somebody accountable to that if they sign on the dotted line and then move out of our county. So that's why the push this year was for the 100. It gets us over the 60. It gets us super competitive with Newcastle. And it puts us, when we advertise, when we push out the Facebook stuff and push it to the academy, that Henry County has, pushed that over 60,000. And they are serious about, bringing recruits into this county and investing 1,228 hours in them to get them going. So Josh may have something. If you don't have anything for me, I'm gonna sit back down.
I was gonna say I like some of Shannon's last two proposals to look into those, Josh.
Thank you. I'll be real short. So we're probably talking from, everything from not the sheriff, but me all the way down, maybe 58,000, right around that. We invested well over that in Nate Lockwood. If you take a new deputy, Mike, you were talking about this, about $33,000. If we lose one more deputy, we've already lost more money than $58,000. So that's really the only thing else that I wanted to add. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you. And a vote saying non-consensus does not mean we're anti-law enforcement.
Can we hear from Mike and Kyle if they wanted to say anything before we move on?
Yeah, Kyle did, but go ahead, Mike.
And I didn't know that there was that many deputies living out of the county. I mean, that's surprising to me. Every law enforcement boasts about having law enforcement in their community and cars parked in neighborhoods. And, how many people have been up Bundy Avenue and they come around the corner, slow way down when they see the police car sitting right there thinking, oh no, I'm speeding. I don't think that it should be maybe I shouldn't say I don't think it should be, but I think it would be more beneficial if the deputies lived in Henry County and made those cars more availably seen versus to live in the county, bonus to live in the county.
I think that would be preferred. It's just not the reality of hires, but I know when we started, I think the road deputy got 42,000 and it's approaching 58 to 60,000. There's no other department even close to that kind of raise over the last 5 years.
You're right, though. I mean, you're completely right, but at the same time, with COVID, with anti-police protesting and anti-police sentiment, we've seen a lot of officers leave law enforcement. And
Fortunately, not Henry County.
No, not here. Thank goodness. I would not like that. But, it's been, as I understand it from my friends, it's been harder to be a police officer. It's harder to recruit new officers. So it's made this competitive arena that has driven up salaries. So.
It probably is. I made a verbal commitment at the lit after, I think, Mark Koger, that I would be for 100% over several years. I just don't see that can do everything in a year, though it seems like our budget shows that we're trying mightily to do so. Kyle? Something?
My biggest concern is just the overall number with the limitation on what we actually passed from the public safety lit. Had we been at a point two, I think I'd probably be more of a, well, yeah, this is an expense that we need to afford, but I still need to spend some time looking through all the actual numbers where the budget's going to come in at before I can really say one way or the other. So I'm not a yes or a no is the best way to put it right now.
3 years from now, I'll commit to 100%, as I said verbally and publicly at the 25th meeting.
Right.
I will not do so now. Given our budget, in effect, we're committing 1.5 million in raises countywide, which is 2 times any past one. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Forgive me, everybody. I've got to take off here. So I'll see y'all later.
Thank you, Kyle. Get
Thank
better.
you, Kyle.
You-
Get well.
Thank you.
3 years ago, Kenan, you committed to fixing this in 3 years. So let me make a statement. I'll be glad to hear what you have to say. So you verbally committed to that 3 years ago. You see where we're at now. And I want to tell you one thing that I'm sick and tired of hearing. I am so sick and tired of X amount of years ago, they made 42,000, so they've got a 5,000% raise. Gary Wilson retired recently. I think he started at 8,000 a year. Do you want to hear me talk about, or hear Gary talk about, I got 4,000% raise? It has nothing to do with today. So I'm every time it comes up, you talk about just pick a year. Why don't you go back 20 years and figure that percentage? It'll be like 1,000% and rejoice in that. I am tired of this. And you said that a no vote is not against law enforcement. You know what the bottom line is? It doesn't make financial sense. We talk about $50-some thousand to fix this. And we just showed you 300-some thousand of real cost. And as I told Susan, that is not even including the 640 hours we are paying a seasoned officer per officer. If you add those numbers in, you're over $500,000. And so, and here's the thing that just blows my mind. I've said it over and over, and I'm going to say it again. We raised the public safety lit tax, the public safety. And guess what happens? And we've heralded, and I appreciate, I'm happy for the entire county in this. Every county employee gets the biggest raise they've ever had, or so we've heard. And that comes from a public safety tax raise and the law enforcement. And again, I want to say this, we're talking about paying 97%, not of 2025. We're talking about paying 97% of 2024. January 1st, the reality will be that law enforcement in the agencies that WIS uses to compare us to, the law enforcement will probably jump 8 to 9%. So we will immediately, law enforcement come January 1, will immediately be the lowest paid per percentage county employee. And we have accomplished all of this by taking more tax money for public safety. We have taken probably north of $20 million since 2016 in public safety taxes to wind up January the 1st being the lowest paid per percentage out of all county employees. It's phenomenal. So to say it's not anti-law enforcement, I'll say this, it's not for fiscal reasons. And so the commitment that in another year, two, whatever you say to be 100% means nothing because your commitment 3 years ago meant nothing.
Our commitment is to getting all employees taken care of, and our comparable list includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cities. It includes a list of counties, all larger, some smaller. The midpoint is the middle. As you've heard me say before, nobody's average. There's going to be, if we were exactly in the middle, there's going to be half of them below us and half of them above us. That's just the nature of the beast. And we are comparing with cities as well. And I'm going to read something that I sent to Addie that says, as it relates to law enforcement wages, with saying that cities' wages are generally a little higher than county wages. Would that be a fair and accurate statement? I know everyone is different, but for example, would an officer working for the town of Whitestown be paid slightly more than an officer working for Boone County? Her response was yes, generally. Although counties are paying more in some areas, that's changing is what she's getting at. However, the benefits are usually better in the county than in the cities. So getting to 97%, we are not the average deuce middle population-wise of what we're comparable to, or income-wise what we're comparable to. we are lower end on income. We are now higher end on taxes. And I'd like to speak to the public safety lit tax because we had other options. We did not have to raise the public safety local income tax. We could have raised or created a new economic development tax that could have been used for anything else. And we could have moved the dollars around for that. So I understand your concern and I understand everybody's concern about how maybe public safety lit dollars were spent in the past. We're doing our best to correct that. I am fully in favor of providing you with some better tools to be able to recruit officers, and I would love to see an incentive for officers to live in the county. And if those two things were included, we'd be above what midpoint is, and I would like to see that happen at some point. I don't know when we can make that happen, but I'd be in favor of looking at that and incorporating it in the budget. There's more to what is happening here than what that base wage is. We got to make this a good place to work. We got to make it a good place to live, and we got to take care of our people. And I understand your concerns. I want to get it better. We're shooting at a moving target. Getting it to 100% is always going to be a moving target. And we can only work with the data that we've got. I understand your frustration with not getting to next year's wages in a timely fashion. We're getting a hell of a lot closer. We're getting there.
I agree we are, and I appreciate it. But the two comments here, you said there were other tax routes we could have done. There were, but you probably wouldn't have passed another tax route. It passes on the backs of public safety because that's more of a, people realize, oh yeah, it's public safety. We've got to have that. So why didn't we take another route? I don't know that question. The other thing is, I don't want to say and make very, very clear, it's not a money thing, and I'll tell you why. It's $50-some thousand extra that we're asking for to reach the 100%. We said that we would allow them to pull that out of another portion of our budget to cover that. So it's not a money thing. I just want to make that clear. It is not a money thing. So I don't know what it is. There are some people, some employees, we talk about fairness. We want to be fair to everybody. We want to pay them all the same percentage. It is not going to happen. There will be people paid more than 97% per WIS. That is going to happen. It's maybe not going to get talked about publicly, but that's getting ready to happen. So the law enforcement, the public safety, we're on the bottom end of it. There'll be some employees paid 110, 115% per WIS. So it's not a money thing. And the reason we didn't try to pass another tax, probably because it would have fell flat and then nobody would have gotten raises. So let's hit up the public safety because that's a good talking point.
I agree with Shannon that I think anything the anything the sheriff's office can do to incentivize deputies to live in county or even, hiring packages, I would be very interested in that separate from salary. To me, mathematically, if I understand that correctly, if we lose 2 deputies in the next year, that's the cost of what this would be. And based on past data, that seems like it very well could happen. So do we want that experience to leave? I mean,
And do we want the experience on the roads when our law enforcement officers are making tough decisions is, I think, a really important thing to consider too.
I just financially, this makes sense to me, but I also respect my colleagues' opinions.
Same.
You've heard mine. And I felt very comfortable and justified in what I said.
We still.
I care about
5 here. Right?
18 departments, not just one. Left. Mike?
I can't find it, but I know I read something with what you said, Josh. And like I said, what you sent was great. It really opened my eyes. I didn't understand a lot of it, and it helped me understand it a lot better. But someplace in this, what you wrote, someplace, I'm pretty sure you put that losing officers you felt was going to level out in a year and a half, or maybe a year and a half or 2. Is that in here someplace? I can't find it, but I know I read it. And my question is I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around, if we give you the 100%, is it going to stop deputies from leaving? Because in my eyes, I see it that we're going to raise our wages, and so are other counties, and we're still going to have deputies leaving for better pay. I don't think this problem's going to go away. And I think it's just the way that the world's working right now with, law enforcement and EMTs and things like that. Wages are going up for them considerably more than, the average person. And I respect that. I just can't wrap my head around the fact that we're not going to quit losing people.
Yep. Well, let me speak to the leveling out. I was referring to pay, and I think, and Addie said that to you all. She expects here in the next couple years, probably that pay, it's been increasing at such a great rate that's probably going to start leveling out, not increasing, the 7 to 9% that it has been. So that's what I was referring to, not necessarily the deputies.
All right, I misrepresented that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I'll just be very, very frank. And I told one of the council members earlier, we're talking about experience and whether or not, the pay is going to keep people here. And on June 20th, I applied for the Indiana Gaming Commission, where I would go and make $40,000 more than what I'm making right now. The 97% has caused me to reconsider. There's still quite a bit, they're paying more. I can tell you with confidence that, and I won't drop their names, but you all know them very well. And they are high-ranking members of our office who have also, we've had conversations about leaving. Again, the 97% has definitely helped because it's going to affect our retirement. If we were to lose those two individuals, it would it's going to create this vacuum. We really don't have, when you're talking about rank, we're talking about guys, those two I'm talking about they're 20 plus years. They've got some more years in them. But we have this vacuum that it's going to create, and we can fill those positions with bodies, but the amount of experience they have, and then you're going to have people that have to fill the other positions. And as you all know, in the last 3 years, we've had half of our department replaced with new deputies. So we do need to retain those officers that do have 18, 19, 20 years. We need them for a few more years. So any amount extra is going to be helpful. And one last point, you look at gasoline, $3.25.99. We're talking about very small numbers here, but the psychological effect is a big deal. You will get people that drive one block down because gas is 1 cent cheaper. That 5 number compared to a 6 number psychologically is a big deal. And it does get people's attention. I do appreciate those other incentives you all are talking about. I hope we do explore those. But what deputies see, or what people that want to get in law enforcement see, they see, what is the salary? That is the number that they are looking at. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I know one of the names he's referring to, and it would be absolutely tragic to lose that deputy.
Don't disagree.
Is there any reason we can't address the sign-on bonus and potential for some sort of incentive to live in county right now before the budget gets passed? Joel, do you have any reason why we couldn't address that right now? Legally speaking, we could make a motion tonight to pass some sort of incentive for hiring and some sort of incentive or including some sort of incentive for living in county. And that could be incorporated into the salary ordinances of the individuals that meet those criteria. I figure if I make a motion, somebody will second it or butcher it or whatever. And would that be something we we would have to vote on at our next meeting then, with an ordinance or?
Probably the advisement that they are going to establish, if you want to know what the criteria are, which some give.
So the hiring bonus would address attracting quality recruits and enticing lateral hires. And I'd still like to see this idea of keeping these officers who have put in a lot of time, because I really think that adds a lot of value to the department.
Well, some of those officers that we're talking about would, in my mind, if they live in the county, they're going to get whatever incentive we provide for an officer living in the county. So that would impact some of those officers to a point. I'll just say what now, go ahead. We got people waiting. Well,
Sure. Just
Here
one
you go.
point, and I appreciate the sign-on bonus. I do. That part of it doesn't really do a lot to keep our experienced
Agreed.
officers here. But I do appreciate the thought there.
That was what I was going to say. And I'll just say this as the department leader, I will trade whatever kind of sign-on bonuses we're thinking or wanting to propose, sign-on bonuses, living in the county bonuses. I'll trade all of that just simply to get that 3%. And I believe that the experienced officers, I know that they're on edge and I know that they're feeling not really cared about. And that 3% would just be a step to say, okay, look, guys, we care about you. We don't want you to leave. We actually do care. We can somehow figure out the extra 50,000. We already said you can pull it out of our own budget money. So I appreciate talking about bonuses and all of that kind of thing. But right now, I'll trade all of that for the extra 3%, just simply to be running 1 year behind and getting paid average fair pay.
Sheriff, just a question, and we've had so many meetings lately that I don't know where this came from, but am I correct in understanding that you had expressed that you might be willing to take fewer vehicles in the future to?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I said, that you could pull that money out of the $360,000 for vehicles. And as much as I'm passionate about vehicles, and I don't think that's any secret, if we don't have bodies to put in the vehicles, a brand new vehicle is no good if it's sitting there with nobody to drive it. So that's where I've offered the money. So that's why I'm having a really tough time understanding really where is this coming from? It is not about money. We know now it's not about money.
That's your opinion.
Oh, no, it happens to be a fact, not a feeling.
No, that's your fact.
let's not argue facts and opinions, please.
Everything about
Not
our
in this-
council is about money.
Let's argue
But
facts. Let's please argue facts.
We understand both of you guys see that differently, and that's okay. Let's try to stick to what we're talking about.
Let's stick to the facts. I think that'll serve everybody better.
I have a question. So Josh, when you said that you had an offer to leave for $40,000 more, and it looks like you're losing most of your senior people, the people that are very well educated with the law and everything else. For me, if I were to get the 100% and I was offered a job for $40,000, I'd be gone. I mean, I just think that, I don't know that this is going to solve our problem with people leaving, especially our senior people.
Yeah, and I was referring to my current salary, not the 97%, what that would do. So that's what I was referring to. And you gotta consider at my age, like I'm 49 and at 55 I can retire. So this raise has a significant impact on my retirement. And so keeping our senior guys there for another 4, 5, 6 years, that is a very big deal right now because we have such a young department.
And I don't want to come across as negative. I just want to know, facts about everything. I mean, because
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. That means you're paying attention. Thank you.
I want to clarify one thing. We go through a state audit every year. I behoove anybody to find out where we misappropriated or spent public safety monies outside of public safety the last 3 years. Because it would be in a state board of accounts, and that never has come up that we misappropriated one dime the last 3 years that did not go to public safety. And that was your inference. Before us, yes.
My inference, and I'm a little bit surprised that you brought that up because just for the public to understand this, I'm just going to give, he said, that's your opinion and your facts. Facts are facts, okay? So here's a fact. Public safety lit taxes can only be spent to public safety. Yes, we understand that. So let's just use some real numbers. Let's just say that the general budget is funding $1 million to public safety. If we can raise the public safety tax $1 million, all you do is simply now pull the $1 million from public safety and pay that and relieve the $1 million burden from the general fund.
Sheriff, that's what the state of Indiana
I get
told
it.
us to do.
I
That's what we had
get
to
it,
do.
but if you want to go down that route, that's what we're doing. So let's just be real. That's what we're doing. No, you haven't misappropriated any money. It's a shell game.
It's not a shell game because a shell game implies you're hiding something, Sheriff,
Okay.
and we're not hiding anything. We're doing what the state of Indiana has charged us with doing. We
Well, just-
cannot increase the general fund unless we lay on property taxes.
I-
And those are limited to us. So we're doing the best we can. I understand
I
the
know
point
you
you're
are.
trying to make.
I know you
And
are.
we're not trying to hide anything, so.
And I want to go on public record to say, I know that you're not trying to hide anything, but that is how it works. You relieve the general budget and then you can give taxes or you can give raises to all of the other because we're now using the new money from Safety Lit to pay for an old debt that we were paying anyway out of the general fund.
So for the purpose of moving forward, there are a few of us that are in favor of the 100% for the reasons stated. It's not enough to reach consensus. I know Shannon is interested in doing other types of recruiting techniques.
I would be interested in a little bit more research. I don't know of any case where we've taken something that's this substantial and just voted on it without having numbers.
Sure.
No, but we can vote to have our attorney draw something up and we can do the research in the process
And when would this be brought back?
at our next meeting, which we need to discuss after this.
Okay.
Here's a hypothetical. What if we, as a sort of compromise, went to 100% on deputies living in the county?
Here's my personal opinion. And I'll just put it in the form of a motion, and if it gets a second, we can figure it out from there. If it doesn't, it'll just die. I'm very much in favor of helping with recruiting and attracting new officers. I'm very much in favor of having those officers in the county. That's why they're best served. I mean, taking home vehicles, driving in the county, shopping in the county, living in the county means very much to me. And those experienced officers that we've discussed, I believe do live in the county. So they would benefit from such a change. So I will move that we have Joel bring back an ordinance for a sign-on bonus to be paid for new recruits in the amount of $2,500. And I would include that, transfers in from other departments with experience would be included, their years of experience would be included, as all of our folks with years of experience should be included in their matrix pay. The second piece of my motion would be an additional $2,500 for any officer that lives within the county and resides, primary residence in the county. I think that's incentive enough for our officers to move here. That gives you $2,500 above what the 97% is to advertise as a starting dollar amount. That gives us an amount to have Joel consider drawing a contract up to pull back if they decide to leave. And it gives them an incentive to invest in our community, buy a home, send their kids to school here, and which will also be a good tool to keep them here in the future. My motion is for the 2,500 to recruit, 2,500 for residents in the county, and to also include any years of experience in their matrix pay. It absolutely will, and you're right, it's not about money for me. It's about principle and making sure our people in this county are taken care of.
But shouldn't we first revisit the budget before we make those motions to make sure we
We
have that kind
can,
of money
and
to spend?
we have to have those numbers included in the budget to look at, and we are not voting on a motion to make it happen. We're voting on Joel to create that ordinance and bring it back.
I really am curious what Harold would think, being a former sheriff. So I think not having him and Kyle currently in this meeting, I would just be really curious about their opinions with this conversation. And yeah, I feel like more discussion, more research is needed.
I'm gonna ask Shannon if he'll change his motion, but it's okay if you don't. But my request is if we make the motion to do exactly what you just said, and when we bring it to the council for a vote, if another option on the table is the 100%, and the council can decide then to do 100%, do what you suggested, or do nothing.
I'm fine with that. I'll make that amended motion.
I'll second it.
Could you read the final motion? Somebody?
It was the 2,500 for new hires, including lateral recruits, plus the 2,500 for officers living in the county, which would be drafted in the ordinance form. And when it comes to the council for a vote, we'll consider as a council those ordinances or the 100% market value or nothing, or perhaps some other form. But I think the motion was those three options, and that was the second.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but Debbie, can you get what the budget impact would be for those motions for us? Recruiting would be hard because we don't know how many we would get. But living in the county, the sheriff's office can give us those.
I would think the sheriff's department could give us this information.
Okay.
You guys got us good data very quickly. If you could give us just a sense of things so we know exactly what we're working with, I think that would be helpful.
And I guess for the 100% that Susan's discussing, we would need to know that budget impact as well. That's painful.
I think I heard a motion, an amended motion. Was there a second on the amended motion? That was Susan. You got all that? Any discussion?
I just don't think we can vote on something like that when we don't know what the impact.
We're not voting to approve it. We're voting to ask Joel to draft the ordinance and to find out what the impact is.
Which would be at either our next meeting or a special meeting to be discussed, as I understand it. So he's drafting something that we'll take under consideration whenever our next meeting is, correct? It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Kyle's not here. You voting? No? I'm going to say yes because I'd be interested in seeing the ordinance, having time to study the numbers, and hearing Kyle and Harold's opinion. I want to hear that, what the others have to say. So I'll vote yes so you to draft it and we take all this under consideration at our next meeting. So I think it, 5-1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-1. Yeah, 4-1 is what we have. Did you get it down, Joel? Get with one of those two if you didn't. I was trying to follow and I think I heard the, okay, so we'll take that up at our next meeting. Anything else? I heard that we need to consider possibly a special meeting.
With all the work we just gave Debbie, I don't know when the heck we're gonna have that meeting, but
Just tell us what you need.
You talking about our normal work session?
so our normal, our normal is the 22nd. Yeah, and that's because that's
Where it falls.
the fourth
Yeah.
Thursday where it falls. Maybe we could move that meeting to the 29th. Although, is that enough time to make all the changes for payroll?
Okay, so it usually is the last Thursday, just the way that's August fell. It's, was an early fourth Thursday. We only have 5 of us here.
My semester's starting and things are crazy, so I may have to Zoom in, but I should be able to do that.
I didn't bring my calendar, but I'm pretty sure I can make that work.
Just be tentative and check with Kyle and then confirm with Debbie. Can we do that?
Yeah, Kyle and
And also Harold.
Harold. 29th.
We'll confirm quickly.
I-
Yeah, we'll get in touch with Kyle and Harold and we'll get back to
I
you.
think for consistency's sake, we need 4:30. Anything else? Anybody from the public who's not had an opportunity to speak? Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing information.
Move to adjourn.
So moved. Thank you.